Hey guys, welcome back to another video. I'm out here again in the beautiful Sunshine State, enjoying another beautiful day. We just had some crazy torrential rain, so kind of glad that's over to be able to enjoy the sunshine. But just want to say, if you're new here, welcome. I was just on a podcast with Julie and Dory. Been part of that show for the longest time. I actually am still with them, and that is a huge part of my life. So go check that out. The trailer will be after this intro. But as you can tell from the title of this video is specifically focused on the CIA's paramilitary branch, which doesn't get a lot of attention. We hear a lot about the SEALs, Delta Force, all these cool special operators and forces. And I wanted to do a specific one on the CIA's one because they don't follow the same rules, and I find them to be very interesting. So a lot of those interviews come from the Sean Ryan and Julie and Dory podcast, because a lot of people have not spoken to those people because it's a very secret and many people are not public about it. So I hope you guys enjoy it. Thank you again if you're new here. Appreciate all of you. Expect videos once a week and if not every 10 days. And hit the subscribe, like, comment, and I'll see you in the video after this trailer. You know, the other thing that was just so bizarre looking into this whole...
Jeffrey Epstein, New York businessman.
The monster sexually assaulted her.
And what's interesting is
Epstein's brother has these interspliced stories talking to Epstein. One of them is during the 2016 election cycle with Trump and Hillary. They're watching the TV, the debates are going on, and he's like, man, if they knew what I knew about these two, these elections would be canceled. This time he has the island. He knows he's going with the movers and shakers of the world. That's another thing about Mark, which was so suspicious from his conversations. In 2000, that's when his brother was like, hey, I just bought an island. So he said he went to the island, it was beautiful, sunshine, jet skis, all these things. And then after that, that was the last time he went. But he's super tied to his brother, and he doesn't think his brother would blackmail him. And now the FBI director and his assistant are saying he killed himself. He came forward and was like, they're lying, that's not true. He didn't do that. There are so many red flags every step of the way. He wants to remain anonymous, but for whatever reason, he has these cold takes on certain things, and it's one that's worth the conversation. So when people talk about elite US forces, they usually think of Navy SEALs, Delta Force, or Special Forces. But imagine a unit that got handpicked by the best from all pipe hitters. This unit is so secret, they even have to sign NDAs, and years after serving, these guys are uncomfortable or they're dancing around the subject matter of what they were doing those years. They usually say it's, quote, State Department. This unit gets nearly zero press, and they are America's goodbye team when they need someone gone. They are designed to vanish, carry out missions we'll probably never know about, and disappear. But tonight, we will lift the veil on America's most secretive unit they call Ground Branch, or SAD, Special Activities Division, or what they call it now, the Special Activities Center.
it's basically their paramilitary unit that conducts covert operations. So for those listening, there's a thing called Title 50, which is covert action. It's basically a code, and it was given to the Central Intelligence Agency to conduct covert actions on the behalf of the government. So covert action is basically missions that the United States government doesn't want any hand in. Like if something goes wrong, like plausible deniability, we don't know, right? So the military does not have the legal ability to do covert action. That is assigned to the Central Intelligence Agency only.
So few people know about the CIA's most secretive Black Ops team, Ground Branch. Originally, it was born out of the Cold War chaos. Ground Branch traces its roots to the Office of Strategic Services, the OSS, the CIA once called it, the original American spy network formed during World War II. After they disbanded the OSS in 1945, President Harry Truman essentially just started to call it the Central Intelligence Agency in 1947. And deep inside that agency, a covert paramilitary division was quietly formed to do the things the military couldn't legally do. That became the SAD, the Special Activities Division, later known in 2016 as the Special Activities Center. Inside SAC, one branch became the sharpest knife in the drawer, Ground Branch. These are the people go into countries we're not technically at war with and conduct raids, sabotage enemy infrastructure, and disappear without a trace. Ground Branch operators are often ex-Delta Force, SEAL Team 6, or Marine Raiders. They're men trained to work in total silence off the books. But who gives the order? Ground Branch doesn't answer to generals, they answer to the director of the CIA, who would be John Ratcliffe today. They answer also to the President of the United States. Presidents like George Bush, Barack Obama, Donald Trump, they have all signed presidential findings, legal documents that authorize covert action. Once signed, the CIA can deploy Ground Branch anywhere in the world, and the White House can deny it ever happened. Their operations don't go through Congress, they don't show up in defense budgets, and their missions are often labeled plausible deniability, meaning if they fail, the US will pretend they never existed. Legendary operator Billy Wall, a figure prominently featured in Pulitzer finalist Annie Jacobson's book, Surprise, Kill, Vanish, serves as a bridge between the OSS era tactics and the modern Ground Branch operations. Jacobson writes of the interviewing of Wall extensively that she described him as one of the CIA's paramilitary field commanders, who was one of the most elite for his time, who remained active into the 80s, actually on the hunt for bin Laden, and most famously for Carlos the Jackal.
Covert Black says, I want you to go into Sudan or Egypt and find Carlos, and I want you to chase him down and figure out how we can take him down without killing him.
A testament to both his resilience and the unit's culture of quiet, relentless proficiency. From that point, Ground Branch became the CIA's go-to tool for manhunting, sabotage, and regime disruption. They've been working in Yemen, Syria, Libya, Somalia, and beyond. Most places we probably don't know. And yet, to this day, the US government has never publicly confirmed they exist. So after 9/11, Ground Branch was deployed before US troops were even there. They were embedded with the Northern Alliance forces, setting laser targets and building early anti-Taliban networks. According to former Green Beret Joe Kent, who was on the Sean Ryan show, Ground Branch was already there before networks, before most Americans knew what Al-Qaeda was.
Pretty unique mission at the time. They were part of one of the task forces that was specifically going after just the foreign fighters that were coming across the Syrian border. My team was on the Syrian border, so we were working on that 05, 06 timeframe. And a couple guys came out and they had a lot looser rules than we did. And they had a lot more money than we did. And they were like, yeah, but we're in the Army. And I'm like, wait a sec, like, so who are you? Because I was like, man, I thought I knew everybody. Like, who are you guys? And they wouldn't even tell me.
In the years after, SAC teams played stealth roles in Iraq's surge, helping to decimate Al-Qaeda in Iraq alongside JSOC forces. Within 15 days of 9/11, a CIA code-named team called Jawbreaker was deployed, marking Ground Branch's spiritual debut. On September 26, 2001, they landed deep in Afghanistan's Panjshir Valley, not under military unit flags, but under the cloak of covert action. Their mission? Forge alliance with the Northern Alliance, scout Taliban strongholds, and call in US airstrikes that launched the war on terror. This is what Wikipedia, or the CIA's Wikipedia, tells us. Though Jawbreaker preceded the formal Ground Branch title, it set the template. Black Ops teams riding horseback into enemy terrain, carrying unmarked helicopters and untraceable communications, all under CIA authority. CIA operators, including vets, arrived in the Panjshir Valley, entering through unmarked helicopters from Uzbekistan to connect with the Northern Alliance. Their mission was seismic: secure strategic footholds, channel millions in cash to anti-Taliban factions, and call in the first US airstrikes of the war on terror. So pulling back before conventional forces entered, while they didn't carry the Ground Branch label at the time, the tactics, tech, and command structure were identical. Small elite teams conducting paramilitary operations authorized by CIA, not DoD, often with clandestine presidential backing. This mission turned Ground Branch from a shadow idea into a decisive player in modern warfare, an invisible force unleashed after 9/11 and never officially acknowledged by the Pentagon or Congress. So, Ground Branch, it's one of the most secret units still to this day, and when you ask veterans who quote-unquote serve, they still get nervous talking about it.
Still one of the few units that not a lot's known about, so I'll be a little bit cagey and not talk too much about that unit.
You don't apply to Ground Branch. You don't audition, they find you. Even among elite special forces circles, Navy SEALs, Green Beret, Delta Force, Ground Branch is whispered about like an urban legend.
I didn't know what that unit was until way after I was out.
Yeah, it's not, we don't really advertise. I mean, the unit doesn't advertise that much. They kind of find who they want.
There are no posters, no recruitment tables, no websites. It's the CIA's most hidden paramilitary unit, and their selection process is just as covert. According to Joe Tedai, a decorated combat vet and former reality survivalist, he was on the Julian Dory show, and he said it all started with a strange phone call out of nowhere. He was out of the military for a little bit of time, no longer on active duty, just living his life when an unknown number rang his phone. On the line, a man named Ron, who immediately started asking about 2 operators by name, guys Joe hadn't spoken to in years. He says now in a rare YouTube interview,
The one dude ended up going over to Delta. He was an operator over there. And so it was really funny because I thought they were dead.
as soon as he said the guys' names, he knew something was up. He hadn't heard those names in forever. Those 2 guys, he thought to himself, they just vanished one day or fell off the face of the planet or even died. Joe never heard from them again. Now someone was name dropping them out of the blue. The man on the line, Ron, didn't explain who he was. Instead, he gave Joe one instruction: meet me in Kansas City, hotel room 105, 2 days. Then he hung up. No unit patch, no briefing, no assurance.
He's like, I need you to jump on an airplane. And I'm not joking. This is what the dude tells me on the phone. He goes, you need to jump on an airplane. I'm at the Holiday Inn Express in Kansas City. I'm in room 105. And can you be here like on Thursday? And it was like Tuesday.
Joe, like any elite operator worth his salt, didn't ask questions. He bought plane tickets for that Thursday 2 days later and showed up. And what happened next sounds straight out of a spy novel. Inside that hotel room, a man named Ron broke the silence. He said, I work for the CIA. And we're building a team. We're part of something called Ground Bridge. And that was when the door opened. Barely, no one tells you what the mission is. No one shows you a syllabus. You're thrown into a black world of background checks, polygraphs, psychological evaluations, and field tests. So brutal, you won't even realize you're being tested. And if you pass, you disappear. This isn't boot camp. This is vetting for a job where failure isn't recorded, because your name was never on the books to begin with. Joe Tedai's story is one of the only public accounts we have. He goes as far as to say he leaves out a lot because there's still so much he cannot talk about. Because in Ground Branch, the silent is part of the uniform.
Everything with the unit's very cryptic. And so you go through like a 40-day selection process, which is pretty wild. And then you go back to your unit and you get orders to come to the year-long training. And they basically give you like this super random email that's just like, show up at this parking lot at this time.
So once you're in the pipeline of Ground Branch, things get even stranger. Let's look at another vet who was on the Julian Dory podcast, Dale Comstock, who is former Delta Force and has a world-famous handlebar mustache. He says the next stage is the polygraph test. This is the fun part, right? In his words, it was egregious, not fun at all. In this clip, he goes through exactly what happened.
It's amazing how many people fail polygraph test. A lot of people don't like it. No, it's not fair, but man, I'll tell you what, polygraph tests work pretty good.
Comstock described the polygraph as something way beyond a lie detector. This wasn't about checking boxes. It was a psychological warfare. They weren't just looking for honesty. They were probing for emotional resilience, psychological red flags, and how you react under pressure. According to Dale, the CIA comes into the room already knowing everything about you. So if there's anything secret you're trying to make sure never gets found out, if you're guilty, he says, they will find out what it is. No question. Comstock said he's seen some of the toughest operators, guys who could have been SEALs, Delta, get flushed out right there. Not because they lied, but because they cracked under the intensity.
Most guys even fail that. The numbers of people that fail that is astronomical. Some of the guys you think are some of the, oh, this guy's a shoo-in for sure. Whoa, he didn't make it either? Holy crap.
This interviewer hammered him with obscure details about his life that Dale never expected them to know. That's when it hit him. This wasn't about your resume. It was about your mind. And if you show even the slightest instability or willingness to cooperate, you're out. No warning, no second chance. Comstock even admitted that after the test, he got nervous and started Googling whether he might have failed or how he could get around from not failing. That was a bad move. It was late. He thought no one would notice. They called him in the morning again. And they said, hey, we had an issue with the polygraph. We need you to come back in. And right there in that cold government room, the examiner brought up the exact phrase he had searched online the day before.
About 6 weeks later, I get a phone call. Hey, we need you to come back up here and do this again. There was a problem with one of the answers, questions. And I went, what? I thought and I thought about, do I want to do that again? So I do. I go do it again. I show up, and I'm not even on the machine. I'm sitting there waiting, and it's a different guy this time, different interrogator. He's really nice. And he goes, what'd you think about the last polygraph? I said, I didn't like it. I didn't like it at all. And he goes, oh, sorry to hear that. And he goes, well, let me ask you something. When you went home, did you go to antipolygraph.org? Dude, my jaw hit the floor. I'm like,
They're watching everything. If you Google anything, they already know, like we said. That's how deep the surveillance goes. Before you ever step foot in a field op, the CIA already has mapped out your life. They're just watching your behavior under pressure. To Dale, this was Ground Branch's crucible. Not about how well you shoot, not how many missions you run, but whether you can survive in places so dark that your own government won't admit they exist or will not be able to help you if you're caught. Because Ground Branch isn't just a job, it's a ghost contract. And once they pick you, you either become part of the machine or vanish trying. So Ground Branch operations fall into distinct categories. There's high value target capture extraction, which is locating key adversaries, sneaking in to neutralize or capture them. Drone civilian aircraft tech retrieval, so recovering before hostile intelligence intercepts. That could be drones. Sabotage, which is disabling weapon facilities, destroying labs. Then the famous one, which is hostage rescue, which is deep behind enemy lines. There's also the training, which is the clandestine operations to run guerrilla warfare with proxies. They use unmarked helicopters, suppression weaponry, false identities, dark ops tech, and perishable documentation. Ex-journalist Grey Dynamics describes Ground Branch as America's stealth warriors, ready for sabotage psychological warfare, or covert influence campaigns. Take that as you will. So the one rule of Ground Branch is there are no rules, kind of like Fight Club. They don't operate under the Geneva Convention. They're run by the CIA Special Activity Centers, as we said, and when they get into the field, there's no backup. There's no AC-130s overhead to protect them, no quick reaction force waiting to save the day, or if the mission goes bad, you're done. No one's coming to save you. You die without a trace, and your story is sealed forever inside a CIA folder no one's ever supposed to read or see. It's a black operation, hence the name, said one former operator. If you go down, you were never there. But this brutal isolation comes with freedom, and for a certain type of elite warrior, it's the ultimate trade-off in a way, because Ground Branch doesn't play by military rules of engagement. Former Ground Branch operators like Dale Comstock and Joe Teddy say this isn't about capturing headlines. It's about finding the people the US government can't be singling after and getting results without making a sound. They're the tip of the spear the media never sees, and if they succeed, you'll never know. If they fail, you'll never hear about it, because Ground Branch isn't just off the books. They're written in invisible ink. They are America's goodbye team, as I've said. On the Sean Ryan Show, Joe Kent described how these operators act. Quote, sometimes they embed with more visible units, other times they land miles away alone. We never know their names, they don't exist publicly. Dale shared one of the only real mission stories we've ever heard on the Team House podcast. He said, straight from the mountains of Barji Matal, Afghanistan, there were actually 3 FOBs up there. One of the FOBs had been overrun. 9 Americans were killed. The decision was made, the remaining outposts must be evacuated fast. Comstock and his guys were flown in on Mi-17s, which are helicopters, in the middle of the night, about 30 in total, including Afghan allies. We flew in around 10, 11 o'clock, he says. They just got out, met with the commander, and their mission was simple, to go outside the wire and patrol the area around the base camp, keep the bad guys back so they could load their gear. They climbed up the rugged terrain, then returned to find a helicopter hovering to evacuate gear, and it got shot down by an RPG. That sucks. He said they shot it down and it came crashing into the camp. It actually took off the legs of one of the crew chiefs. With the helicopter disabled, the July sun brought tracer fire from the high ground. Green bullets down, red bullets up. We turn around, he said, do we go back and support them? It was at that moment, he said, we realized we gotta let the army deal with those guys. So Comstock's team pushed deeper, moving forward toward a ridgeline, leaving the ground bird behind. They then made it to the madrasa, which is a dry hole in another village. They crossed the bridge, and then with night vision on a goat trail, the interpreter fell 25 feet. His face is black, actually blood. They patch him up, and then they spot a small fire across the valley. 12 Taliban stage an ambush. Comstock called in close air support, and F-15 carry JDMs, which was overhead. He says they released a 1,000-pound JDM, and the time of flight 45 seconds. He said, we watched it, parts flying through the air. They didn't need to chase the enemy. The enemy was crushed. But Taliban regrouped the next day, and then he says they came around again. We had 240s, 249s. They killed another 12 in broad daylight. The mission was done. Every last man, every piece of gear was extracted within 72 hours. even after the downed helicopter and multiple casualties. So Joe Ted-Eye lays it out plainly. When a Ground Branch operator falls in the field, it never makes the headlines. In the Julian Dory podcast, around the 257-17 mark, he says, there's no flag-draped coffin, no heroes welcome. If you die in Ground Branch, it's off the books. He goes on saying, your name doesn't go on the wall of honor. They carve a star in Langley somewhere. Maybe your family will see it someday, but that's it. It's silence. Ted-Eye then captured the brutal truth. When these operatives die, there isn't even an official confirmation. No press briefings, no acknowledgement from Washington. Instead, a small silent star is etched on the CIA memorial wall, a monument of unknown heroes. They sacrificed everything, but the world never knew their names. And that is by design. So from the internet research we know, Wikipedia, the CIA's favorite site, and other sources, Ground Branch is believed to have appeared in Ukraine, training reconnaissance units, pre-invasion, then in Africa with the sabotaging of rebel supply chains, Syria infiltrating to identify the WMD sites, Pakistan monitoring terror groups, Venezuela is rumored that they're involved with the 2019 attempted coup, and probably a whole lot of other ones we will never hear about. And that's fine. These silent assassins do the work that never gets appreciated or seen, but do what it takes to keep Americans safe. These are the operators who go in first, leave last usually, and often die with no name or record. Their mission is brutal, quiet, and unforgiving, but without them, America's enemies would feel no fear. In a world of rising threats, shifting alliances, and enemies who don't play by the rules, you kind of need people who are willing to break them for the right reasons. And I know that's controversial. They don't need the fame though, they do it because the job demands it. And that's why Ground Branch matters. And that's why I ask you guys, what do you guys think of Ground Branch? Is this something that the US should have? Is this legal? Or do you think we should remove Ground Branch? All and any opinions are welcome. I'd love to hear your thoughts. I respond to every comment, so feel free to leave it there. My name is Alessi. Please hit the like, comment, subscribe button, and I will see you in the next one.